Hey Terranova, Lyle here. And I want to talk to you about a spiritual habit that's full of thrills and chills. You're going to love this one. It's the spiritual habit of having spiritual conversations with people. Now, I know you might be thinking, yeah, that's just a little bit over my head. I get really nervous when it comes to talking to people about my relationship with Jesus. But what I want to do is just to guide you through a couple of things to move you in that direction, because I think that we'll find that after a while, it's thrilling and fun to see how God guides us to people and then gives us the words to say to them. So just two things I want to talk to you about. The first is to pray for opportunities. So that begin your day asking God to put someone in your path that you might be able to have a spiritual conversation with. I know from personal experience that when I pray that daily, it doesn't happen every day. But I just believe that that prayer is something that God wants me to pray because I know God desperately wants to be known to the people that He loves. So after prayer, that's the first one. The second thing is to ask good questions. Asking good questions, real key. Sometimes we feel like we need to approach an encounter where we know all the answers, but instead it's really good to ask good questions. Here would be a first good question to ask a person that either you've known for a while or maybe you just met. You can ask them, hey, what's your spiritual story? Or what's your God story? Or sometimes we use, what's your spiritual background? But I like using the term God story. What's your God story? And I just say, hey, everybody's got a God story. It gives people a nice wide playing field to talk about their spiritual life. Now, after we've got that conversation then going, then a second question I like to ask, especially if during that spiritual story moment, that the person identifies themselves in some sort of belief system. So maybe they say, oh, you know what, I'm an atheist, or I'm an agnostic, or I'm a Muslim, or I'm a Hindu, is oftentimes then I'll say, oh, that's very interesting. So what does it mean, if they're an atheist, to be an atheist indeed, like truly an atheist, like one that is the real deal? And then I just listen and allow them to share. And so I think it's a great question to ask. I think that it allows people to actually think through what it is that they believe and to see if they can articulate it. And then maybe they'll have enough self-awareness to return the question to you and to ask you. So what is it's like whatever you are, a Jesus follower, a Christian. So what does it mean to be a Christian indeed? And then you can answer that question, and we'll have to do another video to help you with that. But before we wrap things up, I know that our hope is to be effective in this and to reflect the words of Paul when he writes to the Colossians in Colossians chapter 4. As we think about these encounters and spiritual conversations, Paul says this. He says, be wise in the way you act towards outsiders, making the most of every opportunity. And then the next verse, verse 6, let your conversation always be full of grace, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how to answer everyone. So for sure, we want to have grace-filled words as we share with our friends. But we also want to have them seasoned with salt. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean, you're kind of salty, crusty, abrasive speech? No, salt in those days was the flavoring. In other words, he's saying bring the flavor to the conversation. Have a whimsical way with your words. Make sure that your words are interesting and compelling. That's something that we'll all trust God for, that He'll be able to put His words into our mouth, that we might be able to share with our friends, and also then give us as well ears to hear the things that they have to say.